it drives home the humanity, but
Yeah.
also kind of the authority that you have been talking
Uh-huh.
about. You put that on the record just to acknowledge your children.
And it sounds sweet, but it's not sweet. It's a fight song.
It
And
is a
yes,
fight
it
song.
is about my children and it is about me as a mother.
Delta Peace point plus point 4, and we're going to secure the high gain and give you
Hi, I'm
alpha.
Nick, and I am so excited to be with Kim Walker Smith today. And you have heard many of her songs throughout the years, but I want you to hear the stories behind really what she's been doing during those years. Early beginnings. I didn't realize that you were born in Oregon.
Yep, born and raised in Oregon. I left Oregon at 18. So yeah, all of my childhood and early years were spent running around the backwoods, mountains and forests of Oregon.
I love that. My mom was actually born in Oregon, and you don't hear about it very often, folks
Yeah,
being
yeah,
born and raised there. Well,
yeah.
I'm so excited about some of the music that you've had on national radio, international radio over the years. And I think of your time with Jesus Culture. Obviously, Throne Room is one that probably comes to mind most of all. Love Has a Name, Spirit Breakout, just so many really good ones. What do you find from those years is your most played live song?
Oh gosh, it'd probably be either How He Loves or Throne Room. Throne Room is a really big one for me. Also, Holy Spirit. My friends Brian and Katie Torwalt wrote that song. They have a version of it, but I also did a version of that song. You know, when you look at a lot of the most played in our list, that one's always right up at the top. So yeah,
Wow.
I think How He Loves was probably the biggest that I ever had. Yeah.
Yes, that has been like a YouTube sensation for you. Of course, that song first written by John Mark McMillan. Crowder recorded it without the sloppy wet kiss. Do you
Yes,
do the
yeah.
sloppy wet kiss or do you do the
Well, I do because I first heard it from John Mark, who's a good friend of mine, and I actually recorded it many years before Crowder. It's really funny. So, when Crowder did it and he changed the lyric, well, my video had been out for years. Like I had done it so long ago before that. And so when you would go to like YouTube or even Google and type in, How He Loves and maybe even put Crowder, well, my video was the one that popped up first. And so people would see it and they'd go, people were like mad at me. They thought, you changed Crowder's song. You changed the words to sloppy wet kiss. Why would you do that? And it got so crazy. We had to turn the comments off because we're like, no one was looking at the timestamp to see. Well,
yeah,
first of all, it wasn't Crowder's song. It was John
yeah,
Mark's. But
yeah.
second of all, that mine had been years before. They weren't, picking that up or putting it together. So that was actually pretty funny actually when that happened. But yeah, so
That
I
is
I
funny.
sing sloppy wet kiss because I don't mind. But and
Exactly.
and yeah, and John Mark is a friend, so yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I love a couple of John Mark songs, and one of them talks about the answer from God is somewhere between the thunder and the lightning. And I
Oh,
love that.
I know which one you're talking about. It's
I know I
very
should just Google
poetic
it.
with his words and his writing.
And I think people even sing that without thinking about it. But I grew up in Montana and we used to wait for the thunder because we'd see the lightning so from so many miles away and then we'd wait for the thunder. But I thought, you know what? We waiting between the thunder and the lightning is a different kind of measurement. And so just I love that kind
Yeah,
of poetry in that. It's so
yeah,
special. Um,
yeah.
I wanted to talk about sort of the cadence in one of your songs on the new project, Trample. It says, I've been given all authority. And then there's sort of a little phrasing stop. It says, to trample every enemy. And
Mhm.
then, in the name of Jesus. And then, I've been given all authority. And I just love that because you're giving the ear an opportunity to grow in their faith, even in
Mhm.
that musical phrasing. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. I just feel like fear is a really strong message right now. I mean, it seems like all the time I'm hearing people talk about they're wrestling with anxiety or stress or worry. And this song, I do like. I like you're saying the cadence, the way that there is that pause. The song is not rushed. The lyrics are not
Yeah.
rushed. Trying to get that message across that the work of the cross, what Jesus did, is not just to reconcile us to the Father, but also so that we could have life and, as he said, have it abundantly. That we don't have to live in a place overrun by fear or by worry or anxiety. And the Bible is really clear that our battles are not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And because of Jesus, because of what he did on the cross, we have authority over those things. And sometimes we just kind of need that reminder when I mean, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I even have those times, those moments where I'm feeling, let's say, the worry, the stress of something. And sometimes those thoughts are just running wild in my mind. And I can suddenly hear that still small voice saying, remember, like, this is not your inheritance. This is not what I have for you. And I have to like stop and remember, oh yeah, I'm in a battle. This is not just like literally what I'm feeling, this stuff coming at me, is this coming from the outside. This is my enemy, and I have authority over this. And you know, especially things like worry. I mean, one of the greatest ways to combat that is gratitude. And so I'll immediately start, like, I go on the offense in that moment. You know, I'm not on defense anymore. I'm actually on the offense, standing in my authority through Jesus. And that's really the message of this song, is just wanting to remind people of that.
I want to talk about John Reddick in just a moment, but to extend a point of what you were just talking about, what do you say to people that feel like they have a legitimate reason to worry, if that makes sense, even as Christians that can take authority, over their thoughts and read the word and spend time in that? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, you know, I actually wrestled with this for a long time in regards to my emotions. You know, um, we emotions, the things that we feel, the worry, the fear, the stress, insert whatever word you want to put in there. It certainly can be the product of real things that we're experiencing, real things that we're walking through. And being a Christian doesn't necessarily mean that God snaps his fingers and takes away all the trials or the hardships or the difficult things or the storms or whatever it is. But he does give us a plan and a promise that he doesn't fail us, he doesn't leave us, he doesn't forsake us, that even in the midst of hardship or trials, tribulations, storms, whatever, that he is there with us. And I think the bigger point in that, at least for me, this is what I strive to do, is to remind myself of the truth that I get to live in, which is I am not a victim to worry, and I am not a victim to fear. I am not a victim to those things. It doesn't necessarily take away the reality of what I'm living in. I could still be living in the storm or in the hardship, having to face that mountain, whatever it is. Yeah. But I'm not going to allow for the emotions that those provoke in me to overrun me or to dictate to me how I should be feeling or walking. You certainly can have joy in the midst of hardship. When my stepdad passed away, I experienced so much grief. But on the other hand, there was also joy wrapped in that he was no longer in pain and sickness, that he was with Jesus and whole and healed. There was also laughter at all the memories. We were just reminiscing for days and days at, our life with him and the times that we had with him. And it was really crazy and interesting to be experiencing such incredible grief, but also this joy and this even a hope of the future of when we get to see him again, and to be walking in those hand in hand. And that's the other thing about those things. Like, you can be, experiencing the hardship and even seeing the worry and feeling that worry, but you can also be standing in the truth and not wanting to allow that worry to overtake your emotions or overtake your heart or to bring you down, so to speak.
That's great. Now, John Reddick is a worship leader at Church of the City. Chris McClarney, you know him from from your time together in Jesus Culture. And Also, David Leonard. We have celebrated in a recent episode those three worship leaders at Church of the City, and
Yeah.
so you chose to do a rendition of Trample with John Reddick. How did that
Uh,
come together?
Well, it came together because we decided to go on tour together. So we actually head out really soon to be on tour together. And then we just had this idea of, well, we're going to be out on the road together. And I wanted to do like I he'll have some of his set, I'll have some of my set, but I really wanted us to do some worship together. I actually love
Wow.
co-leading with other worship leaders. And so I just had this idea, well, it'd be really great if there was a song that we could sing together and actually maybe release together ahead of time.
Wow.
And so we chose Trample and to do a rendition of that. And again, I think we both feel really strongly about the message of the song and think it's a timely song for right now. And
Yes.
so yeah, that's how that happened. So we decided to get in there and do a version together.
What will
Just
your live
honestly to
sh
celebrate the tour and going out together and doing it. So
Yes, I love that you guys are out on the road together. What will that live tour look like? Well, he'll probably be playing keys, right?
yes, he will. And then probably jumping off of there when he gets that, fire and wants to go into something else, But yeah, he will be playing keys. He's a very talented keys player.
He
But
is. Have
yeah,
you
we'll
seen
be
his
out.
have you seen his paintings?
No, I didn't know he
He
paints.
he is a phenomenal painter.
Wow, man of many trades. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, he really, really the way that he uh, can capture realism, but
Yeah.
also abstract. He's
Wow.
just an amazing artist. I've seen a lot of different pieces from him, and
Oh, that's
maybe
awesome.
maybe you'll paint something around the tour.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I had no idea. I might have to ask him about that.
Yeah,
So,
go to John. I think it's at johnreddick.com. You can see his artwork.
oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah. I think he has
Very
a little
cool.
gallery there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, the nights are just we'll do, he's going to do some of his songs, I'm going to do some of my songs, and we're going to do a lot of worship together. And then I'm also going to be sharing a lot of my testimony because I realize just in recent years that I've been a worship leader for a very long time,
Yeah.
but I don't always I'm usually singing. I'm not always talking. And I there's just a verse in Revelation, I think it's 12:11, that's just been really just in my mind for quite a while. I think about it all the time. I wrote it down, I have it pinned on my wall. And it says they overcame him by the talking about the enemy, by the blood of the lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives unto death. And every time I even say it out loud, I just get goosebumps. I feel this so strongly. Our testimonies are powerful. And sometimes, especially when you've been a Christian a really long time,
Mhm.
um, you're not always sharing your testimony. Like when you first get saved, like have you ever met someone who's like they just got saved and it's all they want to talk about? It's all they want to
Yes.
share is their
Yes.
testimony, what God just did for them. It's so fresh in their minds. And I just wonder, like, man, how did we get like far from that when we've
Mm.
been walking with the Lord for so long? It's kind of like, oh yeah, this thing that happened a long time ago, and maybe we're just on to the new things, the next things, which is fine. But there's just so much power in our testimony and what God has done. And
Amen.
also, it's such a good reminder when you're facing whatever it is you're facing in your life that might be difficult to you have this history with God that is a
Oh,
reminder
that's
that what
good,
he's
Kim.
done before he can do again. And
Mm.
so yeah, I'm going to be sharing my testimony. I hope it encourages people. I hope it brings hope. And I hope it's like a reminder to others to like to share their testimonies, like to
Yeah.
stand on that, to speak it out loud. And even I can't there's been so many times lately, usually on plane rides. I'm in the plane a lot, flying a lot,
Yes.
that I have shared my testimony. And it's crazy to me how hungry the world is right now for hope.
Wow.
They are looking for hope. I mean, I believe the field is ripe with harvest, and it's not difficult. It's not hard to just share simply what Jesus has done for you. I think sometimes people get worried about having the right words or how to present
Yes.
the gospel in just the right way. And the
Mhm.
gospel does not need a flowery presentation. The gospel that just what he's done is
Mhm.
so much hope and brings so much um yeah, just answers for people who are looking for something. And
Mhm.
so it's that's just like the best place to start. You don't need to have the perfect words or the perfect scripture. Just tell someone what Jesus has done for you. And
Mhm.
that is a huge statement in itself.
I love that. I do want to go back to that church that you found that was open 24
Yeah.
hours when you
Yeah.
were maybe 18, 19.
Yep.
And I was listening through your project. Mercy Seat reminded
Yeah.
me, took me back, to you
Yeah.
at that church. And of course, I was at neither place, but I just really felt like Mercy Seat was an invitation to
Uh-huh.
have that sit down at the altar moment
Yeah.
where you just are raw with
Mhm.
Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was yeah, I was about 18 and I was going to a Christian college there in Redding, California. And it was very, I think it's kind of different now, but at the time it was very conservative. And I had only recently really given my life to Jesus. Like I had made my commitment, like, okay, I am all the way in, I am following Jesus. I really made a lot of changes in my life, including like actively praying and reading my word. Like my life really changed when I made that decision. And that's
Mm.
how I ended up at a Christian college. And it was kind of like, well, I hear I should go to college after high school. I guess it should be a Christian one since that's what I am now. There wasn't really a lot of reasons, except that I will say I had gotten a scholarship to Oral Roberts University, and last minute I changed plans and went to Reading because I felt like one day in prayer the Lord spoke to me and said, "Go to Reading, California." And I just looked up if there's a Christian school there. There was. I applied last minute. I barely got in. Um, and I just knew that's where the Lord told me to be. But anyways, I'm driving around the middle of the night one night and I'm weeping because I just felt lost. I felt like, okay, I obeyed you. I came here to Reading, but I'm miserable at my school. I don't have good grades. I'm not doing well. I don't really have friends. It's just I was just really struggling. I was really lonely. And I was just confused. Like, why did you tell me to come here? Because this is terrible. This is like a nightmare for me. And in the middle of the night, I made a wrong turn trying to go back to the college. And I drove down this road that was a dead end. And at the end of the road was a church. And they had just built a prayer house. Of course, I didn't know this at the
Woo!
time, but there's this prayer house. It's open 24 hours and there's lights on. It's windows all the way around. And there's people inside praying. And I'm sitting outside and I'm watching. And I thought, what are these people doing in the middle of the night in this place? And I drove around and saw that it was a church. And so I ended up going back to the church to check it out the following Sunday. The short version of this story is that this really sweet elderly man who was an usher at the church who stood by a door greeting people, when I came in, he stopped me and asked, where I was from. Am I new? And I said, yeah, I am. And I said, I go to the Christian college down the road. And he said, hold on, wait right here. And he went and he got this girl and brought her back and said, she goes to the college too. She had been raised in the church. It was Bethel Church. She'd been raised there and she went to the same college. She lived on the campus like me. To this day, she's one of my best friends. So, this is over 20 years ago now. And she was such a good friend for me because she really helped disciple me. When
Mhm.
I'd say, why are people doing this? Why do they worship this way? Why are people speaking tongues? Why do people and she'd go, well, let's see what the Bible says about it.
Yeah.
And we'd open the Bible and she would show me where it talks about these different things. And she really just discipled me. She was just a really incredible friend for me.
Wow.
And she introduced me to other people at the church, which got me connected. And the funny thing is, God said go to Redding, California. He didn't tell me what church to go to. He didn't tell me exactly the path or the
Mm.
steps to take. I was just doing the best I can. I got myself to Redding, and it's just beautiful and funny to me how the Lord just through my kind of stumbling, he led me where I was supposed to be. And it says in Proverbs, I think it's in 15, that man makes his plans, but the Lord aligns his steps. And I've like lived that truth, like I feel like the Lord will speak, but he just speaks in part, he just says things. I make my plans, but I'm a life surrender. And the Lord is the one who's aligning all of my steps along the way. I just need to keep myself in that place of surrender, which is exactly what Mercy Seat is about. So that song is written just in a place of that surrender and me saying, okay, I think I've done that thing again where I try to take control, where I try to figure it out on my own, where I try to do it in my own strength.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do that. I'm taking my hands off and I'm going to run back to this mercy seat. And I'm going to again acknowledge that God, you are God. I am not. Your way is better than my way. And I just want to follow you and I just want to surrender to you. And I really don't want to do this on my own. And I don't want to have everything figured out. I'm okay with the mystery. I'm okay with not having all the answers. I'm okay with even saying, I don't really know. I'm just going to keep surrendering. I'm going to keep myself in that place of your presence, the
Mm.
mercy seat, just in the hands of Jesus. And I would say, gosh, that was what was established in me way back in that time in all those years.
Yes.
And that is just the place where I keep coming back to. I can't really escape that. It's a very simple truth. It's a powerful truth, but it's something that kind of has to be fought for because a lot of
Mm.
times everything inside of us and even the world around us wants to pull us from that.
Yeah.
And we have to really fight to keep ourselves in
Mm.
that place.
Mm. Powerfully said, powerfully said. Um, Man, that there's so much strength in that one sentence you said. At the end of the dead end street was a church. And I was
Yeah.
just, wow, that is
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Speaking of powerful, there is a song on the new record called Mama, and
Hmm.
it really drives home the humanity, but
Yeah.
also kind of the authority that you have been talking
Uh-huh.
about.
Yeah.
Um, so that song, you put that on the record just to acknowledge your children.
Yeah, I know it's not a worship song. So for anyone who's listening, if you haven't heard the song Mama, I will say it's not a worship song. And it sounds sweet, but it's not sweet. It's a fight song.
It is
And
a
yes,
fight
it
song.
is about my children and it is about me as a mother. And I went back and forth about, I had the record, which is a worship record, which I put out, and I thought, do I put this on there or do I try and do it separate? Now, there's a whole bunch of logistics and things behind the scenes to putting it out separately, like a separate genre,
Yeah.
kind of its own thing. And at the end of the day, these were my thoughts. My thoughts were number one, my calling and my duty as a mother is even more sacred to me than my calling and duty as a worship leader. I am first and foremost a wife and a mother above a worship leader. And when I am being honoring to my husband and to my children, when I am stepping into that role and treating it with the sacredness that it is, I am honoring God and I'm doing what he has first and foremost asked me to do. So in my mind, this is even more sacred than the other songs in many ways because this is such a sacred role as a mother. But also, I was like, just to be honest, I'm like, I'm in my 40s and I've been doing this a long time. And I just don't feel like I have to explain myself at this point. Like, I'm just going to put it on the record. Y'all know I'm a mom. I'm a worship leader. I am both these things. These things can coexist, they can live together. So I just put it out there. But yeah, this song just was born out of a prayer time with the Lord, actually,
Wow. Wow.
talking to the Lord about my frustration, I just wanting to protect my kids and living in a world right now where I feel like the world is constantly trying to tell me as a mother how it should be. And I'm not doing that. I'm raising my kids according to the word of God and according to what he's instructed us. And it is my job at the end of the day to be the front line for my kids, not just in teaching them and instructing them, but in prayer, covering them, surrounding them, protecting them. I plead the blood of Jesus over my kids every single morning and pray
Amen.
for them and pray for them to encounter God. And
Wow.
so this song, it's just that. It's just I wanted to
Mhm.
give voice to other moms like me who are at home with their kids doing the work, doing the hard
Yeah.
stuff every day and doing our best and so want to protect them and to teach them and to do it well. We don't want to fail them, you know? This is like every mom's prayer and heart, you know? So that's what that song is.
I love the record. I think your voice, I don't know if you're using a different mic than normal, but your voice is so pure in the mix, whether you're, belting Mama or singing Trample with John Reddick, or As Long as I Have You, or Chasing
Mhm.
Sunlight. I love Chasing Sunlight so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah.
Your vocal is so pure on this record. It's
Thank
beautifully
you.
done.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. I don't, typically I do live. That's kind of my
Yeah.
go-to is I record live albums, and this one was done in the studio. And I had a really great producer. His name's Rob Elmore, and he did a great job. I think he knew this about me that I, doing it in the studio, I didn't want to lose any of the rawness that would come across in a live recording. And
Yes.
so, and in a studio, it's so much easier to really make things very polished. And so
Mhm.
you actually have to put effort into leaving it a little bit more raw and not trying to strive for perfection. And you know what? I feel like I'm going to sound maybe a little dated saying this, but when I went in to do it, he set up a microphone right at the table next to him where the mix console is and hands me the headphones. And I was like, I
No.
don't I need to go in like an isolation booth or something? He's like, yeah, we don't really do that anymore. And I was like, what? And then I felt like a grandma, like, okay, we don't do that anymore. I felt so old, you know. But to, in my defense, I do live records. I don't usually do studio. So, anyways, then he goes, well, microphones these days they've come so far and they like the actual tech inside the microphones is so advanced. It can pick up just the slight nuances within your voice. And they're doing a lot better about like honing it in right here and not picking up so much room noise. But then he also said, but also we don't mind a little bit of room noise because it's keeping it real and keeping it raw. And I was like, I got a genius for a producer here. Rob
Yeah.
did fantastic. It's funny you say that about the voice too, because on Mercy Seat, I actually had been sick and I had a really terrible cold. And as I was recording Mercy Seat, I was frustrated because I was a little nasally. And I don't think it's that anyone would notice it, but I could hear it. I could hear that I was a little more nasal and a little raspier than normal. And in the end, we just decided to leave it because I said, well, this song is all about how it's about Jesus and not about me. So I think it actually fits that
Oh my
this, in my
goodness.
mind, this is not a perfect rendition of my song. It's actually the sick version of my voice in this song specifically. But I think that's actually what fits that song perfect.
Wow.
And so we just decided to leave it. So it's just kind of funny you brought that up because there were lots of moments like that in the actual recording process. So
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I want to be aware of your time, but I want to talk to you about moving to Montana, how that's been for
yeah.
you. That is my home state and I love that ground so much. I hope that it's been good to you.
Oh my gosh, we love it here so much. We've been here almost 4 years, and it has been the best thing for our family. We moved for our family. My husband and I, he grew up in the same little farming community in Oregon that I grew up in. And
Wow.
when we moved to California, we had a farm in California, so we
Mhm.
were like out in the sticks and outside the city, but we wanted to raise our kids more in the culture that we grew up in, like
Yeah.
small town and very slow pace of life. And honestly, just like the blue collar farm people, like
Yeah.
hard work, very family oriented. So it's just we just wanted to be more in that culture. And yeah, so that's we ended up in Montana and we have just absolutely loved it. We have more than embraced life here and the culture here. I got used to the cold pretty quick, quicker than I expected. I thought this is
Wow.
going to take me like a decade probably to get used to this cold, and I've been great. The kids love it. They love all the snow. And last winter, we got down to negative 45, and that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I might not make it through this one. When we got down to negative 45, I was like, this might do me in. But yeah, we've it's been great. We've made a lot of friends here and great community. I love the people in Montana. I love the slow pace of life. We love the nature. We're very outdoorsy people. We spend a lot of time camping, fishing. We do fly fishing. We hike a lot. My kids, just this last summer, we got them out on a 7 mile hike without one single complaint. So we've been working them up, you know, and they're little kids. So little
Yes.
kids will complain, but we had such an achievement this last summer, 7 miles, no complaints.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. I was just home a couple weeks ago and I got to spend 3 weeks at home. It was the first time I've done that for a long time. And I was driving through town and I saw a bumper sticker that said, "Did you move here to be in a hurry?" And I
Yeah.
was like, that is such a perfect bumper sticker.
And it's so true. You don't move to Montana to be in a hurry. You certainly move there to slow down. Yes.
Yes. And
That's so
speaking of
good.
kids complaining, I remember during those cold winter Montana winters, um, hauling water for our animals because I
Oh
grew up on a
yeah.
very rural farm and barely able to grab 5 gallon buckets and carry water. And I remember spilling water in my moon boots as I walked across
Yeah.
the ice. It was just
Yeah.
horrible, at the
Yeah.
time to remember it, but farm
Yeah.
fun.
My husband might have known about this. I didn't know about this. Our farm in California, I mean, I can think of maybe twice that it got cold enough for the water to freeze. It always warmed
Right.
up by day. That was only at night. And we would just go out there and just break the ice. It was only on the top layer. And like I said, by we afternoon, it's fine. But we moved here and the first it was our dog and we discovered the dog water dishes that plug in and it's hot. It like keeps the water from freezing and keeps it warm. But the funny thing is we put it out and we attract other animals as well, having the water out there,
Oh
which
my
my
gosh.
dog, she'll share with some, not with others. So it's been yeah, I mean, there's little things like that that you don't think about until you're living in it, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've definitely dealt with that. Or the getting your sprinklers blown out. Someone told us about that. Like they have to come out and blow all the air out of your sprinkler system. Otherwise, if the water inside there freezes, it can break the underground. I mean, never would
Yes.
have thought about that. Like there are elements to living in these sorts of temperatures. You have to think about some of that stuff. Kind of
It's
crazy.
it's very crazy. It's very
Yeah.
crazy.
We covered a lot of ground.
We
Yeah.
did cover lots of
Things in
ground.
the past and things that are coming up and the new album. Yeah, we covered a lot.
I love it. I'm very, very excited about Trample. I hope that folks
Yeah.
are inspired by the music there, the rawness of it, and another chapter of you
Yeah,
printed.
thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So cool. Kim Walker Smith,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Kim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, I did too. Thank you.
Good.